Good afternoon, everyone. Just give it a second for everyone to be able to join. Okay, perfect. Today we have a private investor meeting featuring MediMergent. We're super excited about this one. MediMergent is a real-world data and evidence company that unifies patient engagement, proprietary digital technologies, and predictive analytics. So to host this meeting today, I'm going to turn the time over to Sandra Garrett, who is the CEO of MediMergent. And just one last note is we will be doing a Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions, please feel free to either private message them to me or to put them in the chat during the presentation for Q&A following. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Skylar. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sandra Garrett. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of MediMergent. We're here today to present MediMergent AI, our virtual human advocate platform. Next, please. MediMergent is an AI-driven digital healthcare technology company. We are committed to humanizing healthcare by capturing the voice of the patient. We do that by integrating patient engagement, unfiltered by any third party, digital technology, including virtual humans, and predictive analytics founded on proprietary algorithms for the analysis of real-world data. Next, please. MediMergent is an ongoing business. In fact, we have 3 commercialized products currently on the market. MediMergent is a validated commercial digital platform that we use for managing all types of research, clinical trials, and registry, primarily for biopharmaceutical companies for their products, medical devices, both pre and post-approval. MediMentor deploys our MediManager platform, but it also focuses on patient engagement and shared decision-making, and that is used for our primary customer base of payers and claims adjudicators. MediMetrics is our data lake. It collects all of the information from patients when they are enrolled in programs using MediManager, or they are a member of the health plan where the health plan has offered a program to that membership very similar to a wellness program. All of that information is aggregated, and it includes patients' medical records, their pharmacy, their claims data, their labs. If it's a cancer study, it may be the size of their tumor, it may be the genomic data. It is real-world evidence that we collect on behalf of the patient once the patient has given us information to reach out to any of their stakeholders that they see for healthcare. Next, please. So what problem are we addressing with our new and evolving AI-driven virtual human technology? I don't think there's anybody on the line that would dispute the fact that the U.S. healthcare system is certainly in crisis. We have inflated cost of drugs, fragmented care delivery, very complex reimbursement policies, an unprecedented workforce shortage, and a lack of financial transparency for all patients across all diseases. We certainly aren't here to solve this ongoing list of problems, but we have in fact selected 2 as priorities that we will address with our new technology. Next. The specific problems that we are initially addressing deal with 1, women's health. Staggering statistics to share with you that less than 10% women with peripartum depression actually receive adequate treatment. And we are designing, and we'll show you an example today of a program that identifies women at risk both pre and post delivery for that peripartum depression and helps them address the issues early on before it becomes a life-threatening disease. The second issue that we're looking at is financial transparency. And just an issue about why we selected financial transparency. and why we are specifically focused on cancer patients. You may not know that there are 18 million people in the United States diagnosed with cancer, and 2 million are identified every year. And 30% of those patients with cancer, newly diagnosed, have difficulties in paying their medical bills. They seek loans and/or they file for bankruptcy. And a staggering takeaway statistics are more cancer patients die in bankruptcy from the out-of-pocket cost of their care and the burden that they leave with their loved ones than those that die from the same disease, not in bankruptcy. So 2 million patients are diagnosed with cancer annually, of which 650,000 will die from the disease. And again, to repeat, 30% of these patients have difficulties paying their medical bills, seek loans, and/or file for bankruptcy. And thus, we have created an entire interactive platform specifically for cancer patients that address the issue of financial transparency. And as you will see, that interaction is negotiated and advocated through the use of virtual humans. Next. So how are we going to address this problem? By not only using virtual humans, but creating a platform that will ultimately deploy generative AI to listen to the voice of the patient. And when we define the voice of the patient, we mean it through direct engagement with the patient, unfiltered by any other third party. So we are not receiving information about the patient from their provider, from their social worker, from their pharmacist. We are receiving the information directly from the patient through direct engagement. Next. MediMergent's virtual humans, or our AI solution, is a responsive platform that provides 24/7 access to virtual human advocates designed for always on-call patient engagement. Virtual human advocates listen to patients and respond with emotional intelligence. What you see on the screen flashing are 4 virtual humans that the patient can select from. As a matter of fact, we have created a panel of 250 different virtual humans, different ages, different sex, different races, different demographics, and the patient selects their own virtual human that they feel most comfortable with, and that they're likely or most likely to be able to develop some type of empathy or interaction with as they engage for different purposes. Next. Our secret sauce is our emotional intelligence. It is the way we integrate a minimum of 6 different commercially produced AI-driven products that can detect emotion, voice, sentiment, cognitive and cognitive scoring, a bit about the psychographics of the patient that engages with the virtual human, and all of that can be attached with wearables and biometrics. So the MediMergent secret sauce and the development of our virtual humans to engage with patients has the beauty of being able to read the eye blinks. As the patient responds, the AI-driven can get a sense of whether the patient is understanding what the virtual human is communicating. And if it looks by eye blinks, facial expressions, their emotional state, that they're having a difficulty understanding what is being communicated to them, then the virtual human will in fact re-engage and reformat the question. So every interaction, in essence, will have what we call a low, medium, high of cognitive scoring or level of understanding. And all of that is integrated, and that integration process is what we're bringing to the market as our secret sauce. Next. Let's take just a minute, 60 seconds or 69 seconds to be exact, and take a look at what the virtual human looks like. We want to warn you that because this virtual human dialogue is coming through Zoom, we have a certain amount of delay. When the patient is engaging directly, they are not on Zoom as we are for the demonstration, you'll have a perfect sync of lip, of voice, of eye movement, and of facial expression. The other thing that you may want to do is the left hand or the top woman dressed in black and red is the virtual human. The woman on your bottom screen dressed in orange is your real human. As each of them speaks, all of their content and communication is printed out on the screen. Take a look at how this engagement looks with a woman who is suffering from postpartum depression, and she is engaging with us for the first round of a risk assessment questionnaire that the virtual human will help her to complete. And we will take that score and we'll explain to you what the program will do after you have a chance to look at the engagement. Go ahead and play.
Hello, Sarah. It's good to see you again. Just a reminder, I'm Carmen, your personal healthcare advocate. I understand that at your appointment with your doctor a few days ago, you expressed feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Is this how you're still feeling?
Yeah, pretty much.
Please know that there is no shame around how you are feeling. You are not alone. 1 in 7 women suffer from depression post-delivery. However, half of these women go undiagnosed and never have the opportunity to seek help. I am here to help you find the resources you need.
That is good because I really don't feel like myself.
I understand. Post-delivery, a woman's hormones are changing. There are a lot of stressors on moms like you balancing a newborn and a 2-year-old. My goal is to help you feel better. The first step is through a validated survey called the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. This survey is designed to help women and their healthcare providers get a better idea of what patients like you are going through.
A depression scale? Well, who's going to see this? What if I don't want anybody to think badly of me?
Don't worry, this information will only be shared with your pre-approved healthcare providers to help you get the support you need. There are no wrong answers. This is a survey of 10 questions that I will ask you. Your responses should be based on how you have felt the last 7 days, not just today. You can provide your answer by speaking it out loud, checking the corresponding circle in the bottom left section of your screen, or typing out your answer in the chat window on the right.
Okay. I understand. I'm ready now.
Let's first try a sample question. I have felt happy. A, yes, all of the time. B, yes, most of the time. C, no, not very often. D, no, not at all.
B.
Thank you, Sarah. Based on your answer, this would mean I have felt happy most of the time during the past 7 days. Is that correct?
Well, when I think about it, C is probably the better answer and more accurate.
I want to remind you this survey is only here to help you. This is a safe space to express your feelings without judgment. I'm going to now begin the survey. If you have any questions, I am here for you.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that you may have seen is based on the patient's pause, her and the way she dropped her eyes. The AI behind that interaction assessed through a scoring device that she was hesitating, that she was not sure, and therefore the virtual human stepped in with a question for clarification. Just overall, that is a very, very small segment of an entire set of interactions for patient engagement that we are designing for one of the health insurer, one of the payer groups. And that is all part of a long-term tracking program. It begins pre-delivery when we assess whether the mother is at risk for peripartum depression. If she is or she isn't, depending upon a risk score, there are a number of interventions that occur. We pick her up again after she's delivered, 5 days after delivery. And we engage with her through content, through education. We collect all of her information. With her permission, we send it to all of the providers, including her pediatrician, her obstetrician, if she has a social worker, if she has a psychiatrist. So we are, in fact, engaging with the patient. She has the opportunity to engage 24/7. She's a brand new mother. The likelihood of her engaging during the day is probably unlikely. But our virtual human is there at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, engaging, collecting information. We record all of the dialogue. If there's any crisis, we send alerts. It's a very comprehensive program. If you're interested in the program that we're building for financial toxicity for cancer patients, we'd love to have a follow-up call with you at a later time to show you what the technology looks like for that platform. Our leadership and our experience, Dr. Garrett is the COO, Dr. Burrow is the Chief Medical Officer, and Brian James is our interim CTO. They're all on the call. They're all going to engage with you during the Q&A period. Our prior jobs and life before we started MediMergent is on the strip underneath all of our names. Next, please. In addition to the 4 leadership positions of the company, we have an independent board member, Greg Simon, and a very, very active consultant. And both gentlemen, Greg Simon and Matt Isles, serve as consultants to the company. Of note on Greg Simon, he ran the Biden Cancer Initiative up until Joe Biden announced he was running for president. And Matt Isles just stepped down in retirement as the immediate past president and CEO for the Association of Health Insurance Plans and Providers. I'm sure most of you on the phone know that AHIP is the trade association that represents close to 90% of all healthcare insurers in the United States. We have a team, both internal and external to the company, that has extraordinary long history of currency, and they have been most effective in helping us define our strategy and to open doors to meet our prospective customers and help us establish a product market fit like a hand in a glove. Next, please. So what is our accessible virtual human market? On the left-hand side, we've given you an example of what the market could look like for financial transparency. As we mentioned earlier in the slide, if we believe, and there is, that there are greater than 18 million patients with cancer in the United States today, and if through our partnerships with oncologists and hematologists, hospitals, clinics, payer groups, advocacy groups, all the stakeholders that touch patients with cancer, not only to treat them, but to help them navigate their own financial situation. If we capture 15% of that total 18 million population, or 2.7 million patients, and we assume a price point of $55 per patient per year, and it's critical to know that $55 per patient per year has been defined by the payer, by the health insurer, and it's very similar to what the average payer pays for any other, quote, wellness program. But if we have 15% of the population charging the payer group or the provider group $55 per patient per year, that single focus on that single platform, on that specific area of financial transparency alone, would generate somewhere between 100 and 200 million for just the cancer patients. And we're going to discuss with you additional revenue derived from other stakeholders and other therapies. If we turn to the right and we look at what's the forecast for the addressable market for the virtual human market, The global virtual human market was valued at 11.3 billion in 2021. It's projected to reach 440 billion by 2031. Next, please. So who are our competitors? We have divided on the screen 4 competitive market verticals. And the reason that we have done that is that MediMergent and its product and services crosses 4 specific vertical markets: AI-driven virtual humans, global real-world evidence solutions, the global clinical trials market, and certainly the patient payment estimator market. And so on the screen are examples of companies that have expertise in each of those 4 verticals or domains. Currently, to the best of our knowledge, and we know that this could literally change on a dime, today, MediMergent is the only company that we know of creating virtual humans for education and patient engagement that crosses each of the 4 virtual verticals. Next, please. Our traction. What have we done so far? We began the entire virtual human process exactly a year ago yesterday, when we were contacted by our first of the top 5 health insurance groups, when they asked us if we could take our MediMergent technology, we could pivot, and could we take that technology, make it more interactive, and create education and engagement programs for their membership. And the first program that they asked us to address was peripartum depression. Given the number of women experiencing peripartum depression going untreated in the United States, and the cost of post-delivery care, primarily related to psychiatric support, that the payer now has no choice but to address. So since we received that call, began creating an interactive process, we engaged with them, and they gave us 5 criteria that we had to meet in creating this new platform. The most striking is that it had to be scalable, it had to be cost effective, it needed to be available 24/7 to all patients who engaged, and the data needed to be consistent. They were very, very focused on the fact that all the data needed to be vetted. They don't want patients on Dr. Google. They want information that's accurate, that's real, that's reliable. And when we tried to meet all of those criteria, we realized the only way that we could do that was build a 24/7 active, engaging virtual human where we could control the script and we could control the content. We've reached out in your top left block to pharmaceutical and biotech companies, companies like Merck, AstraZeneca, and Zyra. What's important for you to know is that MediMergent has a long-term, we're going on our 10th year, partnership with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for the build of digital AI-driven technologies for patient education and engagement. So it was natural that we would reach out to our ongoing customer population. The health plans came to us. We've since gone back to Cigna and to Evercore, Humana, Kaiser, and 2 of the health plans, Barnabas in New Jersey and Mainline Health in Philadelphia. We applied for a grant, and we'll know by September, to the Jill Biden Women's Healthcare Initiative, and a grant to build out the rest of our virtual humans for peripartum depression. We applied just recently to an accelerator at Stanford University Medical Center called AI-Driven Technology Development, and it's an accelerated partnership. And our application for grant is for Stanford to be a pilot center for both our virtual human technology for financial toxicity and a virtual human platform for peripartum depression. We're obviously building the virtual human. You saw a bit of a prototype for peripartum depression, and our goal is by the end of first quarter of 2025 to be live with a completed pilot test on the peripartum depression, in which we're actually collecting data and analyzing that data. The goal you'll see at the end of our presentation is in the next 24 to 30 months, we want to move from a script-based virtual human platform to an all AI generative platform. And as you all obviously know, we need to enroll at least 1,000 patients in each of our 2 pilot tests to get enough interactive real-world data from those patients so we can start building our AI generative algorithms for virtual human interaction. Next, please. This is just a note of where we're going in the future, where we see ourselves in the next 5 years. Today, we're addressing financial toxicity for cancer patients, certainly the issue of peripartum depression and menopause for women's health. Our next, in terms of priority, by no surprise in this world of obesity and weight loss drugs, will be focused on an interactive virtual human platform for diabetes, in which we are currently talking with all the continuous glucose monitoring company to make sure we can link that in as part of our source for real world evidence. On the rest of the screen, you can see it's moving in cardiovascular, rheumatology, especially pain and chronic back pain and pulmonary. Next. Our targeted customers, the top 2 rows represent our customers today. The bottom row represents, as we mentioned, the customers of communication, Kaiser, Evernorth, Humana, and Cigna. Next. Projected revenues. What we've done for you in this slide is we've separated out our existing business model. And the reason that we have done that is, as mentioned, we are an ongoing revenue generating, profitable company in which our margin can begin to offset, as it has for the last year, the cost of development, all the losses during the development period. So on the screen, you can see the existing business model. The second revenue generator is new business initiatives. Once we are in the market with at least our first tier, version 1, script-based virtual human, and what happens in 2025 and 2026 when we combine our existing ongoing business with our new business initiatives. And that gives you some idea that by 5 years from now, going out, we're generating $140 million in our combined businesses. Last, please. We have raised to date, since beginning the development of all of our digital platforms, $4.3 million. We are now asking to raise $3 million in a pre-Series A bridge to complete our version 1 MVP. Now that's the baseline product platform, our customer profiles, all of our workflows, all of our video presentations, to finish our logic engine and begin our pilot testing. Last, please. Long information, a lot of information transacted to you. We thank you for hanging in there with us. And on behalf of MediMergent, we thank you for your time. Skylar, we're turning it over to you for the Q&A.
Perfect. Yes. All right. We do have a couple questions. The first one is, what is the commercialization strategy? I don't see anyone in the leadership group with a sales, marketing, or leadership background.
They were not on the executive team, and therefore they're not pictured. but they are there. And certainly part of the 3 million raised is to expand our marketing and sales and social media interaction. But for this first phase, we have our customers. For our first phase, we have our customers related to both a pharmaceutical client that is willing to pilot test. We'll see what happens with our relationship with Stanford Medical. And we also have our payer customer. And so as we are building version 1 MVP, we are certainly out meeting with our customers in all 3 verticals while we are simultaneously building product. But we need time to build it, to validate it, to pilot it, to test it, and to transition into our generative AI product.
Okay, great. And going along with that question, what is the size of the team currently?
We have in-house full-time people, we have our contractors, and we have our partners who are developing all of our AI generative algorithms, and it combined is over 50 people.
Okay, great. Are virtual clinicians approved by the Medicaid and Medicare?
I'm sorry?
Are virtual clinicians approved by the Medicaid and Medicare?
As the people on the phone may know, about 2 months ago, the Biden administration announced and approved funding for Medicare and Medicaid, and as a matter of fact, all public and private healthcare insurers for the payment for financial navigators. So our virtual human, although it's virtual human, is accepted as a financial navigator and therefore a provider who enrolls a patient in our financial navigator program can be reimbursed. And there's a separate CPT code for that engagement.
Sand, can I just make one comment? I think that the question may relate to is there such a thing as a virtual physician, and does Medicare pay for it? I want to stress that we are not practicing medicine. We are collecting data, we're collecting information, and all the information that we collect is transmitted back to the patient's healthcare providers. We are not replacing any of the patient's healthcare providers, and we are not practicing medicine. Just to emphasize that. Ken, you may want to comment.
Yeah, that's a very important point to make, certainly. The other thing that's important is that there is currently a major shift going on within Medicare and Medicaid initially, away from a fee-for-service reimbursement for healthcare to what's known as a value-based care reimbursement model. And the virtual human is ideal, literally ideal, for this whole concept of value-based care, because much of what value-based care is going to be based upon is whether or not the patient is not only having less events, less heart attacks, less strokes, less hospitalizations, things that are obviously costly, but at the same time to go ahead and literally engage the patient, have that information given to the providers who can then use that in ways that get around the tremendous inadequacy of the staffing in most provider practices. And so the virtual human becomes a real asset. And as we were just talking about, the first step to that is the Biden administration's Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement for a number of different things, including looking at data in diabetic patients relative to their continuous glucose monitoring. That data that's acquired from the peripherals is in fact paid for. The interpretation of that is paid for back to the providers. So the virtual human is at the right place, we believe, is at the right place at the right time, and is going to make a substantial benefit and inroad in the way that healthcare will be practiced over the course of the next 5 years.
Okay, great. And we are going to continue with Q&A, but while we do that, I'm going to put up just a short poll for the attendees today just to indicate your level of interest in MediMergent. So I will leave that up while we continue on. The next question is the $55 price line consistent with Medicaid and Medicare allowables?
Yes, yes. I have my thank you for attending over your face right now, so let me just.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, you can just click the X on that.
Yes.
There you go. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember that price was given to us by the provider group.
Okay, perfect. Next question is, you mentioned technical partners developing the AI. Who are they? What is their strategic relationship with the company? And who owns the IP for the algorithms?
Critical question. MediMergent owns the IP in the healthcare arena for everything that's developed for the virtual human. The group will go unmentioned until we sign a CDA, but suffice to say, they're a California-based company, and they have spent a fair amount of their professional life, certainly in the last 5 years, partnering with Google and developing virtual reality, instrumentation, customer engagement, and media-related products. We spent a long time vetting them, and they are on the top of their field. You're on mute.
You would think I'd know by now. Okay, next question, sorry about that, is what disease states might this approach be applicable to?
One more time, I'm sorry. What will this approach?
What disease states might this approach be applicable to?
Yeah, that table that we showed, that Sandy showed, are targets with specific components. You know, for example, in cardiology, there is an epidemic of an arrhythmia, of an abnormal rhythm called atrial fibrillation. And we're already working on integrating EKG data, electrocardiogram data, rhythm data, heart rhythm data, with information from the patient relative to how they're feeling, what are the precipitators for abnormalities in their heart rhythm, et cetera, as an example. But that the slide that's currently up basically shows that, as Sandy mentioned, for cancer, we're starting off with financial transparency, segueing from that to lung cancer and breast cancer screening, the two highest incidence rates for cancer. In cardiovascular, heart failure, coronary disease, hypertension, atrial fibrillation. We already mentioned diabetes, obesity, women's health, Sandy also mentioned. Rheumatology, arthritis, chronic back pain, pulmonary, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The list goes on, but these are the 7 highest cost centers in U.S. healthcare, for U.S. healthcare. And the information that we have available to us, the experience that we have, I think strongly suggests that we can penetrate each one of these with a very knowledgeable front end that's clinical, and with the middle and back ends that are basically technology based. So this is all very doable, very timely, and as I said, as the reimbursement begins to shift from fee for service to value-based care, this is going to be a big deal.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Next question, of the 4 different verticals in which you compete, are there alliance or other relationships between competitors in one or more vertical?
In discussion, I'm assuming the question is, are we building partnerships, collaborations with other companies in each of the 4 verticals? Is that the question?
That sounded like the
That
question,
seems,
and the
yeah,
answer is
that seems correct.
absolutely yes.
Am I allowed to jump in and clarify the
Please.
Of
question?
course, of course.
Thank you. No, actually, my question was related to, you had a list of different competitors in each one of those verticals. Are any of those competitors working with other competitors in other verticals to provide a solution that has 1, 2, 3, or all 4 parts that you're putting together?
Carol, not to our knowledge, and that's what keeps me up at night, keeping a focus on every one of those competitors, plus the hundreds of thousands more than we don't know about yet. So to the best of our knowledge, the answer is no, not at this time. Unless you have
Okay.
information you could share with us.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Perfect.
The
Next
other thing, the
question
other thing
is-
that's the
oh,
other
yeah.
thing that's important is that, you know, as Sandy mentioned, we have an ongoing business within the senior management of the company. We have experience that includes being the CEO of a publicly traded company, being the CEO of a privately traded company, both of them focused on healthcare. We have relationships, as Sandy mentioned, with payers, extensive provider networks with access to patients. I don't think that we need a traditional sales force in the sense of a product that's going out and you're putting it in Walgreens or Walmart or something like that. This is a model that is a healthcare directed model that brings technology, advancing technology, in fact, in a way that will, I think, to a very real sense, alter healthcare in a way that puts the patient at the center of healthcare treatment and successes, as opposed to being thought of as the cause of their problems in healthcare. So the goal is to bring the patient to the forefront as literally a contributor to the successful treatment of their problems.
Okay, great. Thank you. How is your platform going to help in cancer screening?
Ken, you want to take that one? Let's start with lung cancer screening.
You want me to? Let Bruce do it. Go ahead.
I can answer that. The three largest insurance companies combined insure almost 60 million Americans, estimated. And a conservative estimate is at least 10 to 15 million of those people are over the age of 55. That probably is a low number. How does our system work? Our system identifies, working with the insurance company, it identifies all the people that are at least that age of 55, and we contact them digitally, and we basically explain to them the need for or the reason to have either a lung cancer screening or a breast cancer screening, or if you're a woman, and we follow up. I think what the difference is, we don't just say, well, I think you ought to have it. We follow up to make sure you do have it. We're not interested in the results. The results are between the patient and their doctor. Our job is to encourage the patient to get screened. And what nobody on this phone call or on this meeting knows is that insurance companies make money when patients are screened for cancer. They get an increase in their star rating, and they also get an extra financial benefit for screening. So screening is relatively low in the United States, and all things considered. And so we believe that our program has a substantial value to encourage screening in those two groups.
Yeah, in addition to that, it's important to remember that the virtual human model is designed to be an educational opportunity for patients. Okay, and so education becomes important. To go ahead and be an educated consumer of the healthcare system, you need to be educated about it. You need to have an understanding about it. You need to understand, patients don't even understand the difference between in-network and out-of-network in general. Okay, they don't understand what a deductible is. They don't understand what a copay is. They get these bills, they don't know what to do with them. It's all confusing to them. And, education is part of the ultimate, should we say, goal of our program. Because if we can educate the patient has a much greater opportunity to be successful in their care.
I think that answered Tom's question that came up on the screen.
Okay,
Tom, did that
perfect.
answer your question?
My question is, I guess, or what I'm interested in, and you may have begun to answer it, is that the platform and these digital humans are meant to conduct medical screening or interviews or surveys, nothing really beyond that. Are they meant
No,
to support? How do they help
the education component of it is important. So, for example, for screening for lung cancer, okay, the most effective screening for lung cancer is a radiologic approach. Okay, it's looking for masses, it's looking for abnormalities, et cetera, but patients need to be educated about what that is, what those tests are, the way that they're performed, the fact that they're painless. There's a lot of information that patients don't know, and that this is all very scary to them. And so the education component of this becomes a critical aspect of it, as well as the follow-up to the information that's gathered.
And
I
Tom,
also want to add to that Tom, you are correct that a part of the function is screening, but I'm going to look at peripartum depression as an example. There's more than screening, because the program that we've designed starts pre-delivery and goes for 6 months post-delivery, and we follow the patient post-delivery at weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, and 24. And the advantage to our program is we can identify a patient at risk quickly and contact all the necessary people to institute care before the patient winds up in somebody's emergency room suicidal. That's our secret sauce, that we can actually identify. And the simple thing is, you saw in the demo, the question. There's actually a 10-question validated survey that's used all over the world, and you get a score. And the worst score you can have, I'll just tell you, is 30, and the best score you can have is 0. But if you score 13 or more, you're at risk for peripartum depression. We will know what your score is on a weekly basis, and we will be able to identify that to all your treating team, your doctor, your obstetrician, your pediatrician, your primary care doctor, your mental health team, and get everybody on board so that not everybody points fingers at everybody else saying, oh, it's your job. No, it's everybody's job, and we coordinate that knowledge and information so that action is taken quickly and promptly to help the patient. Just as an aside, there is a medicine currently on the market. It is the only FDA-approved medicine to treat postpartum depression. It's available now. I don't want to give a plug for it, but it's a product that's available. It's extremely expensive, but it's available, and it could save lives. And so we're just more than screening, to say the least.
Okay, great. Next question. Are you talking to other well-known companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, etc., who are already advancing AI platforms and possibly in healthcare?
yes, in part to one of those.
Okay, and it sounds like that's might be confidential. Okay, no problem. Next question is, are you considering use of this for long COVID?
Wow. The answer is in a different way than you may. We just completed our ongoing business, completed a landmark study with cancer patients, all of whom were immunocompromised. They couldn't fight off the virus. And we tested a class of agents called neutralizing antibodies, and whether those neutralizing antibodies, in fact, help prevent patients getting COVID. We're waiting for publication of manuscripts. So it's ironic that you asked that question. We are intricately involved in COVID research and our ongoing business, but we have not applied the virtual human model to long COVID at this time.
The other thing that's interesting is that this kind of a model can be applied to early Alzheimer's, patients who start to have symptoms and need to be followed. And because we can take advantage of questionnaires that are validated questionnaires, as well as the responses, the visual and the emotional responses of the patient, we can tell if simple questions that are asked are confusing to the patient. If the responses are inappropriate, we can look at them over a period of time. We could look at various kinds of interventions from a pharmaceutical perspective, as an example, to see if you can, in fact, limit the progression of disease. You know, this is another one of those pandemics that are out there in the healthcare system. And I think that the model that we have, even though it's not designed for the patient who's end stage Alzheimer's, the goal is to go ahead and identify patients at risk, identify patients who are progressing, and whether interventions can in fact prevent that from occurring. So this becomes very important. It's a tool that we're developing that has applications that are just exceedingly broad.
Okay. Next question, can the model be applied to claims management?
I'll try that. The answer is indirectly. The idea of the financial transparency model is to basically educate people, I hate to say it, to make them smarter about their health care, and in this case, their cancer care in particular, by going to the right place for their care. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. And I will just give a simple example. If you're seeing your oncologist and he says, you need a CAT scan, and I want you to go down the street and have a CAT scan, patients will just go down the street and have a CAT scan, and then somebody will send them a bill for $3,000. And they'll say, well, I have health insurance. Why did I get this bill? And they say, oh, we're not a network. We're not an in-network provider for you. The patient had no idea that whether they were or they weren't an in-network provider. So can they help claims management? Well, indirectly, they can help claims management by, frankly, going to the right providers so that the claim fits the insurance, and that they don't wind up as an out-of-network provider, and you have to fight with the insurance companies for the payment. It's a nightmare that nobody wants to exist, especially when you're a cancer patient. It's the last thing you want to do is have to go start to fight with your insurance company. So it's not a direct vehicle for claims management from a physician's point of view. However, because a patient is better educated, we think overall it will help everybody, frankly, to get paid properly for the services that they provide. And you don't wind up with a patient who runs up a huge bill and then says, oh, I don't have any money to do this, and I'm broke, and my insurance doesn't pay. It's a bad system if that occurs. And our idea, by making patients smarter, we make the system smarter, and we make claims management more effective.
I don't know who asked that question, but a little bit of anecdotal history there. So everything we do starts step one with focus groups, and we do multiple focus groups around multiple issues and make the participation in the focus group as diverse as possible. What we weren't ready for when we discussed the financial transparency is the first thing that came out of most people's mouths, so to speak, was, oh, maybe it will cut down on malpractice insurance, and maybe it will cut down on malpractice litigation. We weren't focused there at all, but it turns out that that's another positive outcome for the provider when a patient is more educated about their out-of-pocket expenses, and the whole cost system becomes more transparent. So that was a little anecdote that we picked up that we weren't prepared for.
Okay.
Any other questions, Scholar?
Yes, I think we'll do one more and then we can end the meeting. The last one is, you have said that the data can be put in the hands of all of the patient's doctors. Recent experiences have indicated that the doctors are overwhelmed. Will this add to that feeling of being overwhelmed, or will it cut down on their work?
I think it's doctor and system dependent. I think it's how does a practice manage data in general. We started this program because a health insurer said the doctors have 15 minutes per patient, of which they spend 14 minutes inputting all of the patient's data into their medical records. And that the irony of life is that we're using artificial humans to support humans. Because the amount of data is incredibly overwhelming. We think the workflow, keywords, workflow that we designed behind this program, one, will connect the information that we send back to the practice to the patient's medical record. But more important, it sends an alert to another human, and that alert needs to come back to us verified. And so, yes, it's another piece of data. We're trying to make it as efficient as possible in the overall workflow. But at the end of the day, healthcare is a data-driven science and art. And there's no way that we can avoid the overwhelming amount of data that crosses any healthcare provider's desk at any point in time.
But a corollary to that is that using generative AI with the power of the technology to be able to take information and integrate it and look at it in a way that is machine logically and orderly in operation becomes very, very important. And, you know, frequently patients are seen every 3 months or 6 months, even if they've got a chronic disease. Well, what's going on in that 3 months between visits? If the physician and the practice, the PA, the whomever is the point person for much of the contact in today's medical healthcare system, the ability to get information ahead of the problem becoming something that is difficult to manage, costly, requires surgery, requires hospitalization, etc., is tremendously important. And that's just not happening. And it can't happen the way the system is designed now. So this is an opportunity for the providers to get information that's ongoing information that is looked at in a logical and orderly way from the point of view of generative AI's extraordinary capabilities, and to get that back to the people who have to make the clinical decisions about the patient.
I
Okay,
think our time
wonderful.
is up, Skylar.
Yes. Yes, it is. We just hit the last of the questions, so that's perfect timing. I do want to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded, so we'll send you the meeting recording, and we'll also make an intro to the MediMergent team, so you can talk with them on setting up a follow-up meeting. And if anyone has any further questions for them, the email would be the best way to do that as well. And so with that, we will end the meeting here. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.